Hi everyone, it's Barbara and welcome back to my channel. I am super excited about today's video. I am bringing you some Dollar Tree Farmhouse kitchen decor DIYs. So let's go ahead and jump into our first project. I will be using this wood plaque sign from Dollar Tree. You can find this in the Crafter Square section. And I'm going to go ahead and remove that hanger. And then I'm going to take some 150 grit sandpaper, and you can find this as well in a package at Dollar Tree in their hardware section. And I'm going to sand this entire piece because it has a lot of rough edges. Once I get that sanded, I'm going to go ahead and wipe that off. And then I'm going to take my Waverly White chalk paint and I'm going to give this 2 thin coats, allowing it to dry in between coats. And I do go ahead and paint this entire piece as well as those outside edges. Once this has completely dried, I'm going to take my black oil-based Sharpie. You can find these at Hobby Lobby. And I'm going to go around the outside edge of this sign. And once I get finished going around the edge, I'm going to emphasize around the curves on the 4 parts of it, the outside parts. And I'm going to thicken those lines up. Right there at those curves, I'm just going to thicken that up to give it some more definition and to give it some more character. Once I have that finished, I do make sure that that has dried before I move on to the next step. I'm going to be using some of these letter stickers from Dollar General, and you can get these, I think they're about $2 a pack, and I just love the way those letters are shaped. I am also going to be using some letters from Walmart. You can get this in a package, I think they're $3 or $4 for 6 pages. And then I'm also going to be using these little half pearl stickers from Dollar Tree, and they have these little elastic pieces, so I just cut those off. And then I'm going to paint each one of those pearl stickers with 2 coats of my black chalkboard craft paint. And then I'm just going to set those to the side and let those dry. I took some painter's tape and I'm going to use this as a guide so that I can line my letters up. Now, a sweet viewer of mine suggested that you put these on the tape and then you could place your stickers on there, but I didn't feel too comfortable doing that. I didn't think I'd be able to get the tape up with the stickers on it. So I just cut my stickers out and lined those up where I wanted them to be to make sure everything was centered. And then I peeled each one of those off and just used my painter's tape as a guide to line up the bottom part of each sticker. And then I always like to start in the middle so that I can make sure I have enough room to go around each of those letters. Once I have all those in place, I will take that painter's tape up and push those bottom pieces down. And then I'm going to reuse that same painter's tape and put it at the bottom of the sign so I can add those Walmart stickers. So I'm just going to line that up again using this as a guide. And then I am going to start in the middle and go ahead and apply my stickers right there on the top of the tape. And I am going to spell out open 24/7. Now these stickers don't have any characters on them. They just have the letters and some numbers. So I just used one of the L's to use as the slant between 24 and 7. Then I can push all of those down and remove my tape and then push the bottom pieces down. Once I have all the stickers on there and everything is lined up, I'm going to go over this with some matte Mod Podge just to seal those stickers in and also take that shine off. It's going to give it a nice matte finish. And then you're going to want to make sure that that dries before you take your hot glue and add those little pearl stickers on each side of this sign. And I think that just gave it a little elegant touch. To create the hanger, I am using some black ribbon from Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to take the painter's tape and wrap it around the ends and twist that really tightly so that I can feed those through the holes at the top of the sign. Once I have both of those sides fed through, I'm going to tie a knot on each one of those, and then I can cut that extra painter's tape off. And then to secure it even more, I'll take my hot glue and go around under that knot so that it'll hold it in place. So I'll cut that extra painter's tape off, and then I just pull the knot up and put a little bit of glue under there, and then I'll pull the hanger from the front part of the sign so that the knot will seal that glue in. And then this little project is complete. I think it is so beautiful. It's going to look so good hanging on my pantry door. Let me know what you think of project number 1. If this is your first time visiting my channel and you are enjoying today's DIYs, I would love for you to click that subscribe button and the notification bell below this video, and also visit me on Instagram as well as my website. I'll have all that information in my description box below. Let's go ahead and get started on our second project for today. I am using the sign from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to go ahead once again and remove the hanger. And then I used my hair dryer to heat that up to loosen some of the glue that's holding that paper on the front. And I just hold it in one place until I can loosen that glue up a little bit and then peel that paper back. Now I was able to get the majority of this paper off. What little bits that I couldn't get off, I just took my sandpaper and sanded that down nice and smooth. So this is now going to become the back part of the sign, and our back part will become the front part of the sign. I'm going to give this 2 coats of my Waverly White chalk paint, again allowing it to dry in between coats, and I do make sure that I get those outside edges. Now I didn't paint the back because I am going to be hanging mine up, but I made sure that I got the sides. Then I took my ruler and again my oil-based Sharpie and just lined that up where the grooves are and drew a line to create some wood planks. And I did that for all 3 of those grooves. Then I took the same Waverly White chalk paint after that oil-based Sharpie dried and a chippy brush, and I dry brushed over each one of these lines to give it a nice realistic look instead of just some lines that were drawn on there. Then I took my Cricut and went to Cricut Design Space and created a decal. Now I know not everyone has a Cricut, so I do have this as a free printable on my website, which is in my description box below. So if you'd like to go over there and print that off, you could certainly trace this onto your project. And I also have the fonts that I used in my description box below, and the chicken there, it was just a free image on Google that I just downloaded. So I went ahead and applied my decal. I guess this is called burnishing. I'm not too familiar. I'm really new with the Cricut. And I went ahead and pulled my transfer tape off. And then you could just leave this to be set up, but I'm going to go ahead and create a hanger for mine. And I'm going to use that same black ribbon that I used in the first project and the same method to feed that through those holes and then tie the knots on the back and then glue those down. And I love how this sign turned out. It is so beautiful. I just love it. And again, you could set this up and not put a hanger in there. You could fill those holes in, or you could hang it up, whichever you prefer. Again, let me know what you think of project number 2. For project number 3, I'm going to be using 3 of these signs from Dollar Tree. Now, I thought they were real wood, but they're not. They're MDF. And I'm going to take one of those and I'm going to go ahead and mark my measurements. I'm going to cut these down 2 pieces to 7 inches. So I'm going to use that one sign and cut 2 7-inch pieces. The other 2 pieces are going to become the outside part of my ladder. So I'm going to cut 2 inches off of those, so both of those pieces will be 16 inches long. Now you can use a handsaw or whatever you have on hand. I'm going to go ahead and take mine outside and use my miter saw to cut these down. Now I have 2 16-inch pieces and 2 7-inch pieces. And now I am going to make my measurements for the angles. Now you can skip this part and just leave them straight, but I wanted mine to be able to lean up against the wall. So at the top left-hand corner, I'm going to measure over 1/4 of an inch, and then I am going to measure down 1 inch. And this is going to give me an angle so that the top part of this towel ladder will rest up against the wall. So once I have my 1 inch measurement marked off, I can take my ruler and draw a line between the 2 measurements, so I will have a guide to know where to cut these off at. And then on the same side of this same sign, I'm going to go down to the bottom and create the angle for the bottom of this ladder. So I'm just going to measure up on the left-hand side 1/4 of an inch and make my mark. And then I can connect that 1/4 of an inch mark to the corner on the right-hand side and draw my line to make my guide. And you're going to want to do this exact same process for the second sign so that they will both be the same and match. So I'm just going to take these outside and cut these down. And once I have those cut down, I just like to line mine up on top of each other to make sure that all of my angles are the same and that everything looks exactly the same with those two pieces. Now I am going to drill some pilot holes, and these are going to become the outside pieces of the ladder, and the way I set mine up was so that the wording would be on the inside. So now I have flipped it over, and these are going to be the outside parts of the ladder, and I'm going to go ahead and measure where I want to drill my holes. So the first hole is going to be 3 and, well, I started off 3.5. I changed it to 3 3/4. So no, it's 3.5. I'm sorry, you guys. It's 3.5 inches from the top. And then you're going to want to center that up so it's about an inch over. And the second measurement is 9.5 inches down from the top. And then again, 1 inch over to center that up. And I'm going to make that same measurement on the outside of the other piece as well. And I'm just measuring from the top down. So this is where our two pieces will hold the middle pieces of our ladder. So I wanted to find the center point on each end of the middle piece of the ladder. So these are 2 inches wide, so it's going to be 1 inch over, and then they're 1 inch thick, so it's going to be 1/2 inch. And you'll just make those center marks on each end of those two pieces. Then I took my drill with a drill bit to go ahead and just drill in these pilot holes. Now, the purpose of drilling these in is so that I can line them up with the outside pieces, but also to prevent these from splitting and cracking. Now, I did not use the right size drill bit. For the screws that I'm using, I used a smaller one. So you definitely want to make sure that you have a large enough drill bit for the screws that you're using, because if you don't, they will split, and I'll show you in just a minute what I'm talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and get those outside pieces drilled as well, and do that for both of those. And then once I have all of my pilot holes drilled, I can assemble this piece. And I'm going to be using 2-inch wood screws to put these together. So now I have these two outside pieces. I'm just going to flip them over so you're actually looking at what's going to be the front of the ladder, and then I can put my steps or pieces there in the middle. And then I'm going to take my 2-inch wood screw and go ahead and drill in that outside hole for the outside of the ladder until that point comes through, so I'll know where to line up that middle piece. And then once I line those up, I can go ahead and drill that in. And so this is where I'll show you that I didn't have a large enough drill bit, because the first piece I put in does crack and split, but it's okay. I'm still able to use it because it's still pretty secure. But just to prevent that, you want to make sure that you have a large enough drill bit so that you don't have this problem. And so see, it cracked and it split right there on the two outside edges on that side. But again, it's pretty sturdy, so I went with it and just went ahead and used it. But I did go ahead and change my drill bit out and went over all those previous holes to make them larger. Once I had those larger, I went in and added the second piece to the middle of the ladder. And this worked perfect, so this piece did not crack or split. So learn from my mistake, and then you won't have this big old crack there at the top. Then I can go ahead and add my other outside piece, doing the same thing, drilling those 2-inch screws in there. And so after I get these drilled in, if you used a large enough drill bit, you can skip the next step because hopefully you won't have any cracks or splits. But because I do have those and I wanted it to be nice and smooth and finished looking, I'm going to take some spackling and go in and fill those cracks in. And then once that spackling dries, I will go in and sand that down nice and smooth. And then it looks like it was never there. But it is pretty sturdy. I mean, you know, it's just going to hold some towels. So once I have that all sanded down, I'm going to take some apple barrel burnt umber acrylic paint, and I'm going to paint this entire piece one coat and let that dry. And then you could leave it as is, but I wanted mine to have a nice weathered wood look. So I'm going to take some water and some Waverly White chalk paint, and I'm going to mix it about a 1:1 ratio. And I'm going to mix it really good, and then I'm going to take a paintbrush and go over this piece. Now, these outside pieces had some like rough texture to them. I guess it's the type of MDF they used. So I do go in after I put my paint on there, and I'll take a lint-free cloth and wipe that down. So I did this for the entire piece, and I absolutely love how the outside edges came out because it didn't have that texture like it does here on the front. See, it just turned out very beautiful and weathered wood looking with that whitewash on it. But those front pieces had like some bubble looks to it that I wasn't too thrilled about. So I do go in with my chip brush and some more of that acrylic burnt umber paint, and I'm going to dry brush over the front and back of this piece to give it a little bit more of a wood look rather than those bubbly type look that paint formed on the MDF. So I'm just going to dry brush over that. And then before that paint dries, I'm going to take my cloth, my lint-free cloth, and just lightly go over it in one direction and kind of like smearing it in to give it some lines that look like wood. And then once you get all of this done and it is completely dry, this project is finished. And I love how it turned out. I think it's very beautiful, and it's going to look so good sitting on my kitchen counter with a tea towel on it. It's just a nice decorative piece. Let me know what you think of project number 3. For project number 4, I will be using this wooden plaque from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to go ahead and remove the sticker off the back, and then I'm going to take my 150 grit sandpaper and really emphasize on those grooves because they're very rough and I wanted it to have a nice smooth finish. So I go over this entire piece with the sandpaper and then wipe any of that dust off. Then I'm going to use some of these wood beads from Walmart, and I'm going to go ahead and pull 4 of those out, 4 of the same size. To attach these to the bottom of the plaque, I am going to use some E6000 and some hot glue. And I'm just going to take a Q-tip because a Q-tip kind of helps me get that E6000 where I want it to go. And I'm going to put that on 2 spots opposite of each other on the wood bead. And then I can go in with my hot glue and put that on the opposite 2 spots of the bead. So that hot glue is just going to hold it in place till that E6000 sets up. And then I can place that in the corner there at the bottom. And I'm going to do that for all 4 beads. And I'm just trying to make sure that I keep each one of them lined up with the other so that they are nice and straight. Once I have all those 4 beads in place and that all the glue has set up, I can go in and paint my piece. So you can paint it whatever you like, but I am going to be using some Waverly antiquing wax. So the antique wax made by Waverly and a foam brush. And I'm just going to go over this entire piece with that wax and let it set for just a minute. And then I'm going to take my lint-free cloth and wipe all that excess wax off. And it is gorgeous. I love how this color turned out. It is so pretty. So when I flipped it over and went to the bottom, these particular beads that I used from Walmart have like a film over them. They're not like a natural wood bead. So I don't really recommend using them with this wax, because when I went back over with my lint-free cloth, it wiped the wax completely off the bead. So I do go in and just paint the wax on there and leave it. I didn't wipe any of the wax off the bead, just so that it would stay there. And then I'll clean the rest up with a Q-tip. So if you have a natural wood bead, that would work a lot better. Now you could completely leave it just like it is. It's gorgeous. But I wanted mine to match that towel ladder we just made. So I'm going to give it that weathered wood look with my Waverly White chalk paint with some water. And I'm just going to use the same technique I used on that towel ladder, painting it on there and then wiping it off with my cloth. And it's going to give me this gorgeous weathered wood look with a little whitewash on top. And I think it's just beautiful. I love how this piece turned out. So once all of that dries, you could use this little mini riser to put like a soap container on next to your sink, or maybe your dishwashing liquid, or you could decorate it however you like. I just put a little vase on here for you guys to see how it looks. It's so cute. I love how this project turned out. You guys, I want to thank you so much for watching. If you have a favorite, let me know in the comments down below. I would love to know which one is your favorite. I hope you enjoyed today's DIYs. Thank you so much. Please take care, and I will see you guys next time.